Hello chess fans, welcome back to 101 Ways to Win or Lose a Game of Chess. I'm your host, Onyx Chess, and today we'll be resuming our studies on imbalances. Today, we're going to deal with tempo, which just means time. You need time to make a move. Alright, I think it really can be summed up as simply as 1, 2, 3, and 4. It really is just that simple. We see here in terms of the scholar's mate, white will play e3 or e4. That's one move. Bishop to c4 is 2, queen to f3 is 3, and queen to f7 checkmate is 4 moves. So, real simple. If you give somebody 4 moves, it's game over. You can't afford to do it. You can't waste 4 moves. If you wanted to just look at it pragmatically, just move this, look at this, black's gonna waste a move, white moves here, black's gonna waste a move, white moves here, black's gonna waste a move, white's gonna move here. Okay, so black's wasted 4 moves now, and now it's actually 3 moves, and white was able to checkmate here. Okay, just like that. So that's what we're talking about when we're saying, careful not to waste time. And this is probably where you could almost, leave the lesson. But it really, there's so many implications that we're talking about here. Because really, isn't this just a massive clue as to how you're supposed to play chess? Alright, so if this is what you don't do with your knight, alright, if you're supposed to not waste time, what is it to make the most of the time then? And once again, we get right back into the roles of pieces. You want to be assigning your pieces relevant and effective and efficient roles throughout the game. Whichever one can name more things that a piece does, that's the one that's going to win the game. They're the ones that win. Whoever can name more. Whoever can get their pieces to do more. And that's really, like, if we think about it in this kind of a narrative, e4 is saying a whole bunch of things. One of which is, now my bishop can come to c4. Alright? Knight is saying a whole bunch of things. But none of them address that bishop on c4. Maybe it's got other ideas that are more important. I don't know. But in this position, we're fairly sure that no, it doesn't. I mean, yeah, I can come here and look at that pawn. I mean, no argument. Okay. But then it doesn't. It goes all right back there. Like, you understand what I'm saying? It's now, what's black knight said? Oh, I was confused. I meant to, that bishop coming out to c4 changed the board, so now I have to go back. Like, it's just, the knight's insane. Alright, that's what the knight is saying. The knight is saying, I'm absolutely insane. I have forgotten my address. I don't know who I am, what I am, where I'm supposed to be, or what I'm supposed to be doing. You understand? That's what this knight is saying in this game. Alright? And you might laugh. You might laugh and say that's kind of cute little way of putting it or whatever. But really, while this might be a blatant example to people 2000 and under, just picture for a second that you're playing a grandmaster. And you're telling me that your best play doesn't look exactly this goofy to them? You telling me otherwise? You can't tell me otherwise. That must be the case. There's no variations where like people under 2000 playing grandmasters don't look insane. Really and truly, we should be asking ourselves, what are we actually missing in this game? What are we actually missing? This is not a matter of tactical calculations. This speaks nothing to that. This is 100% a matter of insight. This is a matter of creative application. They can make their pieces do 10 things. We can only make our pieces do 5. As such, they wipe the board with us, man. Checkmate every time. Real simple. So to me and you, this knight looks stupid. But to a grandmaster, this is what we look like playing a grandmaster. Our very best looks like an insane knight. You're free to argue that. Ask one of them, see what they tell you. And I mean, you're gonna get a little politer version. They won't tell you. You remind me of an insane knight that just allows a 4-move scholar mate. That's what you remind me of. They're not gonna tell you that, but just look behind their eyeball and you're gonna see that's exactly where they're coming from. All right, and that's just a fact. I mean, hey, we can get little huffy puffy all we want, but it's not gonna change the fact that we look like insane knights to grandmasters. I don't want to beat this point to death. But it's just to say it really is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Alright, you don't want to be wasting moves, particularly not in the beginning of the game. Because we know that in the beginning of the game, if you give your opponent 4 free moves, his checkmate is done. So you can't be, making waste with all your pieces all the time. Alright, so we're going to cover a few more examples here. And maybe just nail this down. In this example, it's just kind of like a little made-up game. But, maybe, White was told at one point that, the F-pawns were weak because it's the king alone that defends them. Okay? And so maybe White, between that fact and the idea of initiative, decided that, let's go ahead and just attack that F7 pawn. And it certainly does take initiative. Black has to react to what White's doing here, or it could be over quickly. So, it's definitely a forcing move. Black has got to deal with, not only the F pawn, but the E pawn as well. So, maybe White's thinking on those lines. And if that was the whole picture and the whole truth, we would say this is probably a good idea, good move. But there's obviously a lot more going on than just this. And so Black just plays calmly, defends the pawn, let's say. Again, this is a made-up game, but just to show what tempo is all about. Black plays calmly, defends the pawn, develops a piece, because Black was told, get your pieces out, hold the center, and so on. Okay. Now White says, hey, so far so good. My plan's 2 moves from being checkmate. And he goes ahead, moves that bishop out. Okay. So now White's hoping, maybe that Black doesn't see or something like that. Okay? Up again, Black, rather calm. Just even puts a place for his bishop. Maybe, the bishop didn't want to fianchetto or whatever. But let's just say, here we are. He's prepared a place for his bishop and he's put the question to the queen. Okay. Queen moves back, says, nice try, but the threat's still there. So all of this is pure initiative from White, 100%. Black's doing nothing but reacting to White's moves. Okay? And they're all threats. I mean, let's be clear. White's been 2 moves away from a checkmate now since the beginning of the game, pretty much, So it's not completely toothless threats. I mean, it's real stuff. Like, Black has to deal with it. You understand? So now White's like, okay, here's another one at you. Okay? And of course, Black just calm. Okay, no problem. We're just going to, defend that. Put that knight where I was going to put it anyway. Alright. White says, let me just make sure I get some... My queen's the only piece defending that pawn. I don't know if she's going to be there forever after things like knights and things like that. Let me go ahead and defend that pawn a little bit. Okay. Black now challenges queen, and she has to go right back home. Pretty much forced, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. But here we have a queen that moved once, that moved twice, back. She's moved a lot now. Okay? And this is 3 moves. I mean, she could have just stayed home and this board would look the exact same way. And White could have, got the knight out, prepared a fianchetto, got the, knight out and castled or whatever White could have done with those moves. Certainly would have the board looking better than it is now. where black's thoroughly developed and has the center and everything else. White's completely toothless, has all kinds of development to prove. Black's well on the way, and it's only because white was, maybe wasting a little bit too much time. Here, probably black's gonna queenside, but I mean, who knows, but I think anybody would probably rather want black here. This is just a good example of, why we want to make sure that our pieces are being effective and that they're arguing valid points. Yes, you're taking initiative. Yes, you're putting threats on your opponent. But the thing is, you just made black put all his pieces where black was going to put them anyway. This knight always comes out here. It's a nice square, looks after the center. This knight always comes out here. It's a nice square, looks after the center. All right. See, it's knight outposted here, and this c3 is going to be slow to kick it. So there's opportunity that black can probably build around where that knight is right now for his next move, and maybe be threatening. Some real threats. Based on that c3 narrative and so on. All kinds of things. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about tempo. All right. Another example. In this game, and this is an actual game, this is a French. It's a French opening. We see an interesting theme. I call it the Napoleon killer. Okay? Because to me, I call it's an anti-French opening. And French players have have difficulties with it because it just really doesn't look like a French once you get started. It looks nothing like any kind of an e4 opening whatsoever. All of a sudden, it's, wait a minute, is this, queen pawn or king pawn opening? I'm not sure no more. You understand? This is looking an awful lot like some Queen's Gambit business here. Okay? Kind of thing. Yeah, Napoleon killer. Alright? It's like this. Now, the thing in this opening is, if black is going to take this pawn, then white's just going to snap it off with the bishop all in one go. And that's what white's definitely hoping for. And yes, even at 2000, we do see black still taking that pawn. Yes, we do. That happens frequently. Okay? Maybe it's a good idea. I don't know. But I don't think so. Alright? Because white's hoping for that. Because white has to castle kingside now. And white's got to get safe relatively quickly too. Because there's play down the center. So black develops. It's almost a race to king safety. It's almost what we're talking about here. And white has to slow up his development on the king side because he really wants to be blocking that with the knight. Maybe other ideas are better, like maybe the bishop here or the knight here. But right now that knight's looking like it's where it's got to be. All right. So black's a little ahead now in terms of getting castle first. Now white has to move a piece out his castle. He's got to get safe here. White moves out. Black moves the knight. White moves the knight. Black castles. And now white has to move that bishop one way or another. Okay, so white was hoping black would take that pawn. Black did not take that pawn. And that bishop now has to find residence on one of two squares. White selects the e2 square. Now black takes. Now white takes. And what we've got here is a position now where because white had to move that bishop twice, really what we're talking about is the difference between this king not being castled yet and this king being castled. That's really the difference that we're talking about. If black had taken that pawn any time before, then when we get to this position right here, that king is still on e8. Alright? That's not to say that's some big tragic, oh look, then I'll do this and that. No. I mean, maybe then there's a tactical shot. Bishop takes f7. Maybe. I don't think so, but it could be. That's what it's about. Okay, tempo is going to help you set up your potential in your situation. All of the imbalances will help increase your potential for those kinds of tactical shots and those kinds of tactical threats. All right, tempo is no different. Without tempo, you can do less things. Without space, you can do less things. Without center, you can do less things. All right, without king safety, do less things. Without material, you can do less things. You see? These all imbalances that increase the threat. All right, that's a good slogan for a shirt. If somebody wants to put that on a novelty shirt, increase the threat, go ahead, man. It's not copyrighted. Maybe I'll do that. All right, that's what it's about. It's what you want your every move to do. As efficiently as possible, increase the threat, the potential. All right. Good example here. A little bit of a Benoni-Benko issue here. Okay. We're not going to get into this line too heavy. But it's just to say, Black calculates here that if he can distract the defender of the e5 square, that could be a liability in the long run. Now, he has sacrificed a pawn at this point. But what's he got for it? All right. Again, we're not going to get into the study aside to say he's going to put up another pawn there and set up this bishop looking down this diagonal. Now, what this does is it stops that e-pawn from comfortably going to e4 and supporting the d5 pawn. So white's on a bit of a deadline here. White really has got to shore up and sync up the safety of that d5 square. And he can't do it supernaturally with d4. And, you know, ideas like knight to c3 are perfectly fine. But once again, we're leaving his king slow to defend. All right. And furthermore, if at any point white wants to really develop that bishop, it's pretty much got to come over to g2, where it's going to look down a diagonal where the king won't be, because the king will be castled king side here. Okay, so it just slows up white. All right, and again, like just looking at the massive difference between thinking about this tactically and fundamentally is two completely different things. You understand? Because if you're looking at this and saying, well, this is a known opening because the tactics support, I mean, that's redundant. Of course they do. There's no known openings where, you know, the tactics don't support at least somewhat of a fighting chance. No question there. But that's, I mean, to be said about every opening. What makes this one different? And we just discussed it, you know, we just discussed it in depth, right? We're stymieing white's immediate central control. We're stymieing white's chance, that we're really mitigating white's chances of getting out there quickly first, taking space and initiating everything else. All right, at the cost of a pawn. Okay, so we're trading a material imbalance for what? Tempo here. Effectively tempo. I mean, even if you just argue having to play. Okay, that alone, just playing G3 alone, that's it. That's that tempo right there. All right, that way it's gonna, you know, or redirecting that bishop on an applicable diagonal. How many tempos is that gonna cost white? To put the bishop here, then here, then here, then here, or here. It's a lot of tempos. You know, because that bishop, a little bit displacing. So it's not only tempo. We're just taking, you know, let's say that bishop is 3 points on one of these diagonals, or let's call it 4. Now it's only going to be worth 2 points on this diagonal. You know, where it's going to just stare at the back of that pawn's head all day long. In fact, if we were doing study on this, I see bishop all the time, bishop g3, but now I'm wondering why everyone just doesn't play bishop h3. That seems like it might be a lot more effective for sure in many variations because often black is operating on these kinds of squares here often. And even after that, we could talk about ideas here. Coming back here, and now you have your diagonal bishop. So again, this is not a study on the Benoni or the Benko systems, but just again a little bit of a pragmatic example of where, you know, white just doesn't have the time to play. White would love the time to play that e4, but just does not have it right now, at least not at the cost of losing a castle and stranding, you know, a few pieces back there in the corner, namely, of course, that rook, who would really like to get out and would really not like to see that king stuck on f1, where the rook could be looking at the back of the king's head all day long. Unless the rook wants to make a weakening move and further weaken squares around his king and, you know, maybe come out this way like that. But it's nothing special. I mean, for the cost of a pawn, white's got a one end game with those rollers, the pass pawn roller. I mean, no question. All right, but you know, white has to get there first, and it's just with a displaced, you know, after bishop takes bishop, king takes bishop, with a displaced king like that, that could be a tough case to prove. All right, so again, like, it's just, you know, an interesting little side note. This will be here the final example, and in this example here, again, this is just a little bit of a mock game where we just kind of show what the tempo's about, but it comes to a little bit of a critical head where we can, I think, really just drive home the importance of tempi. Here, you know, white comes out real simple, e4, e5, knight f. Okay, real basic business here. White play a little strange here. Okay, doesn't want to go into pianos and ruies or anything like that. White just, you know, for whatever reason says, you know, I just hate it when that bishop pins my knight. Let me just not worry about that. You know, I hate that the bishop takes the knight and the pawn takes the bishop, and you know, I got my double pawns there, and I don't know if that's so good or not. And so let me just do my bishop right there on e2, just put it there for now, and you know, we'll see. No more headache. It's worth it. Go ahead, make your move black. Black develops, whatever. But now white says, oh, wait a minute. Now I know how annoying that pin is for me. I hate that pin. Let me go ahead and put that pin on black. That's what white says here. It says, hey, wait, let me go put that pin on black now. All right. All right, black just, you know, puts the question to the bishop a little bit. Where you going to go now? You know, white says, wow, man, my whole point for being here was pinning that knight. So now if my bishop comes back here, and then this pawn comes up here, and my bishop comes back here, I'm no longer looking at that knight. And black has taken space on the queen side. So, you know, if that's what it is, then maybe I'm just better off here looking at the king. Let me just go straight there, straight to the king. Keep an eye on the king straight away. Okay. Black comes out, pins the knight. And white says, oh, I see, I hate that. That's what I hate. I hate that when that happens. Let me, I was right in the first place. You understand? I was right in the first place. Let me go back to e2 and stop that pin so I don't have to double my pawns in case the bishop takes knight. Okay, I know this is just a mock game. All right, this didn't happen. It's just something, you know, out of my, you know, imagination or whatever. All right, but just to show the waste of the moves. You understand? Black continues development. White continues development. Black's castle. And, you know, kind of at this point, we're just going to take a quick stock. And we see that white's not castled yet. We see that white doesn't have his knight developed there yet. Alright, yet and still black is not only knights out in king's castle, but even has a rook in the center as well. Okay. So that's the thing. All of that, moving around with the bishop, again, did nothing but help, really. Black put pieces on squares black was going to put them anyway. Okay, but let's set that aside for a second. Just look at a final aspect of tempi here. It's black's move. Now, just forget, really, the board position almost completely. Pretty much just forget about it. Because now we're going to stop with, the features of this exact position, except for one thing. Just imagine with me. Imagine with me for a second that this knight right here on c6 really will never do anything for or against black's position, for or against white's position for the rest of the game. No matter what happens, that knight is basically just neutral, completely neutral. In other words, all things even. It's never going to be looking at this square here. It's never going to be aiding in any kind of defense there. It's never nothing. It's just completely neutral. And picture that the only one thing that this knight can do is just take this bishop. Let's just say. Alright? But let's add something to the theory. Let's add something to this picture. Let's just pretend. Again, nothing with this board position, but let's just pretend that this bishop here is absolutely unacceptable. This bishop, if it's allowed to remain on b4, will end the game for black. It's going to make white win. That b4 is absolutely critical that that bishop be removed from that square one way or another. It may not stay there for another move. Okay? So really, black has two choices then. a5 or take with the knight. Okay? Now this is a fatal threat. That bishop's gotta go. Black has two options. Which will he play? a5 or knight takes bishop? That's the question. But unlike the knight, let's say that pawn moving to a5 does two things. One, it deals with the threat of the bishop. But the second thing it does is it moves it one step closer to queening. Okay? Which one would you choose? Which option would you choose? You see? Taking this knight neutralizes a threat, all things equal. Moving up the pawn neutralizes a threat, but not all things equal. It also does one extra thing. Okay? And of course, the idea is a5. In that case, if all things are equal, a5. Because this does just one little extra thing. Now again, if we needed defense, of the b5 square, it's a different story. If we need defense of the b5 square, we can foresee that that's going to be critical. Maybe we're going to just take with a knight then, because maybe the chances of this end game going into something like this are a little bit different. Okay? But all things equal, this is the result of that decision. All things equal, black wins this game because black made a decision back here that to deal with this threat on b4, that to do it with the pawn would give him this one little extra advantage. Okay? And so now we're right back to that insane little horse that we were talking about in the very first example. And we're right back to talking about how we look to grandmasters when they play us. Alright? Because this is the kind of tactics, pardon me, strategies that they're employing to do people like me and you in. Easily, with ease. With ease. They can see 10 things a piece does where we can see only 5. Which means that every time they make a move, they're loading twice as much potential into the next board positions. To where at move 10, 20, 15, 30, 40, it's forget about it. Because even if you play all things equal, even if you play just perfect, you're still going to end up in this kind of a situation, black to move. You play as white. Grandmaster plays as black. Okay? It's about assigning roles. It's about having your pieces do as much as you can possibly think of. And weighing the pros and cons. You know, it's so easy to say if all things are equal. Okay, because it never is in a game of chess. It never is. If all things are equal, never happens. That knight's going to have an impact later in the game. You're going to have to decide. You know, if that knight's super useful, then definitely don't trade it off. If that knight really sucks or that bishop's super strong, then definitely trade it off. You know, because things are never all equal in the chess game. That's what it's about. It's about arguing the inequalities. You know, same thing goes like we're saying b5 square. You know, if black's going to need that pawn defending that square later, and it might because is this white bishop going to end up there in some variations at some point. You know, how about this knight to maybe, you know, deal with this kind of business? Okay, is it going to be needed there? You know, and if not, is there another way we can deal with this knight and still move this pawn up? You know, if so, hey, let's just move the pawn up. If not, you know, let's, you know, and so you're just constantly weighing, you know, do we go with the pawn or do we go with the knight? Do we go with the knight or do we go with the pawn? You understand? It's just one big argument, you see. But it's definitely about assigning roles. And once again, where's the tactical combination here? This is not about tactics. This isn't about tactics. This is about providing tactics later. This is about providing the potential for tactics. This is about providing the potential for tactics. This is tactical. When you just like we say, if I take that, then he takes this, and I take that, and then they take this, and I take that, and then they take this, Same thing here. I move there, then he moves there. I move there, then he moves there. I move there, then he's there. This is tactical. This is extremely tactical. And this is only brought about by fundamental decisions that have nothing to do with if I do this, then he does that, and I do this, and he does that. Nobody from move 10 looks ahead in the game and understands this variation. But you can load as much potential into this kind of an endgame here as possible. You can do that. Okay? So, anyway, look, this has been a little lecture on tempo. I hope it was thorough. This is Onyx Chess. Thank you for stopping in. May you see the board well, and may your pieces find the very best squares.